All right, so this whole deal was born from the fact that I had made a recent post about how I used Circus Ponies Notebook in trial, and Sanford had sent me an email asking for some more information, and I suggested we just talk on the phone, and then that was born into several other people said they wanted to listen, and so this was born. So I'm using this Cisco WebEx software, which I've never used before, so this works or doesn't work, blame it on Cisco. In any event, Circus Ponies Notebook has been around a long time, and I like to take credit for the fact that I kind of found it for a lot of lawyers years and years ago when CompUSA used to exist. I used to go in there and just look at software boxes, and right at the time we were deciding to move to Macs, I was in there and found a Circus Ponies Notebook box, started looking at it, and it was at that time marketed as something for students, and just seeing the metaphor that it used of a spiral notebook made me think that would be perfect for a trial notebook. And so I got the software, and then as I learned to use it, I started sending emails to its founder, and the guy was president of the company at the time, and he, being a small company, would write back, and I would say, hey, we need this feature or that feature, which they eventually incorporated into the software. And then when the MacLaw listserv was born, I started posting about Circus Ponies, and I think it's picked up following by trial attorneys. Anyway, what I developed a template, which is in the files section, and if you can't get it now, don't worry about it. I'll post it on both the MacLaw and the Milo listserv, and I'll just email it to anybody who can't get it one of those ways. And it's the template from which everything you're going to see is based. Every time I start a case for trial, I use this template and I build things into it. Now, I'm going to admit to you that, like a lot of lawyers, I don't always prepare from the very beginning as if I'm going to trial like I should. And so sometimes I play catch up on a case. When I realize it's going to trial, I go back and I try to build a trial notebook, because frankly, it's sometimes overwhelming to try to maintain an up-to-date, accurate trial notebook for 20 or 30 different files, especially when you've got multiple paralegals filing pleadings. But anyway, so Circus Ponies Notebook, this is the notebook I'm going to use is called Smith versus Jones. This is really the trial notebook from the case I just tried, but I've gone through and edited out some sensitive information, so I'm not wasting anything, and changed a few names. The first thing you see in the notebook is there's a contents page, and this is using the template that I created, and it's set up, and each one of those things drop down. You've got your contact info, your costs, investigation, correspondence, pleadings, discovery, witnesses, documents, then actual trial stuff, exhibits, post-trial, appeal, and then the multi-text. One of the things I love is you can customize this toolbar up at the top by going to View, Customize Toolbar, and it shows you all the different things you can put on the toolbar that might be things that you use over and over again. And so you just drag one of those things to the toolbar. I'll put email up there, and boom, that's added to the toolbar. I don't use that, so I'll take that off. So you can get the toolbar shown the way you like. You can have the toolbar show just an icon to make it less obtrusive, or icon and text if you need that. So again, that's View, Toolbar. And if you don't want to show the toolbar, you just unclick that and the toolbar goes away under View, Toolbar. There's also what's called the contents card, which I really like to have, because rather than just working from a tab over here where you can't see all of the sub things that are embedded underneath that tab, with the contents card, it creates a card that sticks out on the left that shows you all of the sub areas, and so you can skip to those things much more quickly. So I leave the contact card out there, and let me get the toolbar back, because I like to have that. All right, the first thing in the template is your contact info, which each one of these arrows, if you'll down click on it, shows you the contents below it. And I do a contact list, which I either import a document like I've done here that shows all the players in the case and their phone numbers and addresses, or you could actually type the language in up here where I've got that. You could just add the files and phone numbers that way. But so anyway, you'll notice the wonderful thing about Notebook is when you have an item attached, as this players.pdf file is, it's just a Word document that we printed as a PDF, and then I just drag it into Notebook, and it appears. By double-clicking on it, you can open it, and it comes up, and I can scroll through it and see it. What's important about this is as we go later on and we're looking at exhibits, by embedding your exhibit into the Notebook file, you can then just double-click on any exhibit. It will open in Adobe Acrobat or Keynote or Preview or whatever application you designate to open the file, and then you can show it to the jury. And the way I do that is, right now I've got a monitor attached, second monitor, so it's like an extended desktop. And by just dragging, when I double-click that item, if I want to show that to the jury, I just click on the bar and I drag it off the side of the page, and my projector is set up as my extended desktop, and it then shows it on the screen for the jury to see. One thing that's important is in your preferences, your system preferences on your displays, the arrangement, you'll see the active or the main screen can be moved from the left to the right. I normally prefer it, my active screen, my personal screen, not the screen that the jury sees. I normally prefer that to be on the right, on the other side, because that's the screen that your toolbar is going to be on, or your dock is going to be on. The problem is, I found recently, if I have it over on the other side, although Circus Ponies Notebooks, I can drag to either side and use that as the extended desktop. If you use Trial Smart, Clarity's trial presentation program, it only works with the extended desktop being to the right. So I had to kind of relearn, and I'm trying to get used to that by having my extended desktop always on the right. I tended to like, if the projector screen is on the left side of the room, I like my extended desktop to be on the left because I'm looking that way, so naturally my hand wants to move that way with the mouse. That can be a problem, but if you want to work with Trial Smart, it's better to get used to the extended desktop being on the right, and your presenter's, my personal screen, to be on the left. So anyway, set that up in the preferences. Okay, so I put a contact list in the template. First thing, I'll have a page for client information. Here I have drug in an attachment of their fee contract, so I've got it right there. If I need to check something in that, I'll put their phone number, date of birth, social security number, information that I'm going to need, cell number, over and over again. That information I put there on the client information page. And then there is template information. That's, you don't need that in yours. You can erase that. That's just so if someone wanted to contact me. The next section is a cost. So here I put an itemization of our court costs in the case, so I have that with me all the time. My office manager will email me that report every so often, and I'll just switch them out in the notebook. That way, if I go to mediation, I don't need to call someone and say, hey, what court costs do we have in this case to date? And so I have the itemization. Again, I can double-click it. I can get all my fee information on court costs right there. The next thing in the template is the investigation tab. You can see on the other side it's called Investigation Notes Work Product is what the tab on this side comes out. Here, I have pages for all these different areas. Attorney notes, you click on each one and you get to it. Here, just as I'm researching, this was a traumatic brain injury case. As I'm researching on the internet and I find an interesting little article or something, I download it as a PDF and I just drag it and drop it into this attorney notes section. This was like a wonderful little thing that was written about the brain being an amazing organ, and I thought that might be something I might want to use in an opening statement or closing argument, so I threw that in my attorney notes section. Chapters from books that you know you're going to reference over and over again. There's the signing things I'm going to need on brain injuries that I'm going to need to prove and definitions. I have it right there with me. So that anywhere I have my laptop with this notebook file for this case, I have all the information I need for that case. So when I go to a mediation or anything other than, and even most hearings, I don't even take a file. I have the notebook file on my laptop. I don't need the paper copy, and I can work on it on nights, weekends, wherever. I have everything I need. Now, that brings up the point that my biggest complaint about Notebook is that it is not network friendly, meaning that if you put the original Notebook file on the server so that everybody can access it, if one person's got it open, other people can't make changes to it at the same time. And so we tried a situation where you would check out the original file from the server, but people would forget to put it back, and it was just a mess. So the bottom line became, and I'm a little bit of a control freak, I keep the original notebook file for that case on my personal laptop. It's my case. And people can just send me things to put in the notebook file, and I put it in there. But if you're trying to make it available to a paralegal for them to be able to file it, you end up sometimes with multiple copies of the file, and that can be a problem as to which one's the most recent. So I just keep my...
Is this a solution, Kern?
Yeah. Carl?
Because what we do, and we have this issue come up frequently, is we go to the, we use a solution. I'm going to use Dropbox, although I'm not recommending that as an idea because people are familiar with it. And what happens is people can access it, 50 people at the same time, but if 2 people are in at the same time, it creates a conflicted copy with the date and time it was changed. And so you can just reconcile the changes because you'll have the latest one. It's not perfect. It'd be better if it could network, but what that does also is allow you to have access to it remotely. When you're not at your computer, you can get it on an iPad. Now, does Circus Ponies work on the iPad?
There is an iPad app, the Circus Ponies Notebook. I will tell you, I'm not crazy about it. I use it for note-taking sometimes, but it is, the going back and forth between the iPad and the computer for me is, I just don't trust it, so I don't use the app that often.
I just wanted the ability to look at a notebook when I didn't want to carry my computer with me. So maybe I'll look at it. Is it a paid app or is it free if you own Circus Ponies? You know?
It's a paid app, but it's not very expensive, I don't think.
Okay, well, thanks.
Okay. So anyway, I hear this under this tab, I've got my attorney notes. Sometimes if I annotate a document within Adobe Acrobat, I mark it up or I highlight it. I'll make copies of my annotated documents and drag them to this page. You can keep to-do lists. That's the next thing. Again, we're under work product, to-do list. And you can make check boxes. And as you complete an item, you can just check it off. So Now I've used this page to demo Circus Ponies. I just check it and it goes off. And now how you do that is you go up on this page, you can, so when I set up this page, you go up to page, to do page, and it'll make it so that every time you hit enter, it creates a new to-do list. So from now on this page, if I hit enter down here after the last one, it creates a new one, you know, retire on island, after I collect on the judgment. So it'll automatically configure it as a to-do. Because I won't be doing that, I'll take that one off. Also, to delete a cell, you can click on the blue button where the whole cell is highlighted, and then now I'm going to push the delete key, and it's gone. So once I selected on the judgment, I just click that. So you can have your to-do list. I have a page that's a chronology of important dates. The accident was on this date. Here's the date their MRI and CT was done on the 16th. So I can list important dates in a chronology there. I have a page for a diagram. In a car accident, I'll have the police report as an attachment. I will go down from the police report and create a screenshot of the diagram. You know, you hit Command-Shift-4, you can do a screenshot, and then I'll drag that from the desktop. Here it says screenshot, so that I have the diagram of the accident always available to look at. Then I have, under work product, the next thing is causes of action. In this case, I knew it was going to be negligence or negligence per se. You can just list the things you're going to include in your pleadings or that you need to prove. You put up a draft jury charge on a page. A lot of times I like to begin the case by drafting a jury charge so that I know all the things I'm going to need to plan. I can put it here. I have a page for damages so that as you go, you can list your damages if you want, or the different categories of damages. In this case, you'll see later why there was not much on this page, because most of that information was put somewhere else. Then, again, the next thing, again, we're under the tab for work product. I'm just using the contents card to go between the different things so that I don't have to go back to the tab each time that I go from one back to the tab. I can just go on the contents card. So we were looking at damages. Then there's legal research. As I'm on a research service pulling cases, I just download the PDF to the desktop and I drag them into the notebook. I put a little note about what that case is about so that I can look at each case. And if I want to see that case, I just double click on it and there it is in Adobe Acrobat. So it keeps all your research organized. And of course, under legal research, you could easily create additional pages and have your research categorized by the different issues in your case, and just have all the cases relating to causation on one page and all the cases relating to, you know, damages on another page. So it keeps all my pages organized. This
How easy is it to resize those images, Kern?
Do what?
Where you have the little icons that say this is the case that you can double click on.
Right.
How easy is it to resize those and get those the right size if you like that?
Okay. Like I will click on this one, the one above it. You'll see it develops the handle. You just grab that handle and resize it. And it gives me a percentage. See, it says that 6%, 7%. So that I can use that so that all the others match it. If I want to move them all to 12%. That way I can get them all about the same size. The other neat thing is, on a case, you'll see these double arrows right down here. You can determine which page you want the preview of that document to be. And that's handy for PDFs that are photographs. so that each one of your icons doesn't look the same. You can tell this to align it to the left, align it to the right. If you don't want to see the preview of the document, you click View as File In icon, and there you have it. But I right-click on it, View as File Contents, I see it as the document. Then in this case, I added another page for brain injury research. And as I would research things about traumatic brain injuries, I would drop them on this page so that I always have all my research organized. I can pull up an article and read it, highlight it, flip from it, and it's all right here on the page. And then I had the biomechanics was a big issue in this case. So I had articles about how to cross a biomechanical engineer on the, efficiency of the fluid. Then the next page, this was the rules of the rope. I'm a believer for plaintiffs in reptile type theories, and so here I worked on my rules that would be applicable to the case, and came up with my rules there. The next tab is correspondence. I divide correspondence as correspondence to me and correspondence from me, rather than putting it all together. And so it's easier if I know if I'm looking for a letter I sent them or a letter they sent me. I don't have the correspondence in this file. This file was already 1.6 gigabytes in size, and that's because there's a number of videos things in it, which take up a lot of space. And so
can you just link those files as well?
You can. You have the choice when you drag and drop a file into Notebook as to whether or not you want the file to be embedded in the Notebook file or merely linked to the Notebook file. And when it's linked, it means that the actual video file or the PDF file resides in some other subdirectory somewhere else on your computer or on a server. If you embed it, when you copy the Notebook file, everything that is an attachment to that file is copied with it. I personally choose to embed everything because I don't want to run the risk that I click on something at trial and it tells me that it cannot locate the file. But in your office, you could choose to just, link files rather than embed them. And that choice is made up in Notebooks and Preferences. It, under Attachments, it will say, copy the file into Notebook or just link to the original file. And I have my default set up as copying the file into Notebook. Okay, so there's correspondence tags. Then the next is pleadings. And I input all the pleadings. They are right in the case Notebook file so that you have access to all the pleadings. I put notes about the pleadings over here for quick reference. That was just a general denial. This one down here, they asserted pre-existing condition and knew an independent cause. So at a glance, I can find the pleading where they did that. Now, what's also interesting about Notebook is the index feature. You'll see this tab, Index. Every word that you type, so not words that are embedded in documents, but every word that you type into a cell in Notebook is indexed. So because I have put in the word pre-existing here for this pleading, if I go to the index, and I go up here to text, I can go to the letter P. We'll go up here to the top. P. I know somewhere something was said about pre-existing. Where is it? Pre-existing. And I can, there I spelled it that way, and it goes right to where we use pre-existing. And I'm not sure why the one with the hyphen that I just, it may alphabetize the hyphen differently. Let's see. No, I have no idea why it did not pick that up as existing with the hyphen in it, because normally...
Because you're giving a demonstration.
Exactly. Ah, well look, here's the word pre. There it is. Found the word pre. Because of the hyphen, it didn't like it. So anyway, if I knew the word, for example, Portland was important. Something about Portland. What was about Portland? I can just go to the index, look up the word Portland, click on it, and there's the reference. The dad in Portland, when she was there, they were together for a week. And by clicking on that, it takes me right to the page where the word Portland was used. That's incredibly helpful to me. Okay. So we were back at pleadings. I have all my pleadings in there. I have a tab for the motion, and I do a little summary of the information that the motion was about, so I can distinguish it from other motions, or I can search for that information. I have a page for scheduling orders, because I'm constantly wanting to look back at the scheduling order, so I can just double click on it, and there's my scheduling order. Then there's a page for Rule 11 agreements. In Texas, we call it Rule 11. Anytime you and opposing counsel agree on something and it's binding, here's where we extended some expert designation deadlines. So if that ever comes up, I'm at a hearing, I can, wait, Judge, we had a Rule 11, pop it up, and by dragging it to the right, I can show it on the court's projection system, and the judge can see it without having to fumble through a file and look for it. Then,
index.
I'm sorry?
You have to create the pleadings index manually?
When you say the index manually, which, there's all these...
I mean, like a table of contents for the pleading by date or something like that.
I guess you could. I just set it up for motions. I just kind of do them in the order, you know, as they came in, so I knew it was later. You could easily set up an index under the pleadings tab. You could set up your index right here in terms of, you could just have a separate click. This could be your petition. This next one could be your answer. And so that just by clicking on it, you would go to the page and it only had that pleading on it. You could do it that way. Here I had a tab for Daubert challenges, because that was a big deal in this case. Then the next tab is discovery. And real quick, let me show you what you can do on these tabs. You can, by right-clicking on a tab, go down and say Show Tab Inspector. You have control over the text that's on the tab. We call it, you know, something other than discovery. But you'll notice in front of my tab labels, I put a couple of spaces. That's because if you don't, the label runs right up against the next one and they're harder to see. You can, what color do you want the tab to be? Click color, come over here and click on the little color box, and you get your choice, and you can change the color to anything you want. Pink, blue, green.
Just a hint here, Kern, what we do is we have a standard set of tabs that we use, the same color.
Right.
Every time we set the color for that index, we drag it to those little boxes down below, and then we don't have to refigure them out. They're in the right order every time we do the template.
Right.
Or a new template for a different kind of case or whatever.
Right, and well, in this, yeah, in this
copying the whole book.
the template has the colors already set. So yeah, this is the way it is for every one of my notebooks, and so I know, you know, these colors are going to be the same every time. The bottom.
But sometimes we'll use you're using this template for a trial template. If you make different kinds of notebooks, where you're not copying the whole notebook,
right?
You can keep the tab colors the same by doing that. That's all I said.
Okay. At the bottom, you'll see the width adjust, so you can make one tab stick out more than the other or less than the other. If you need that, something you want to go back to, and that's your style. So that's your tab inspector. Again, I right-clicked on the tab, show tab inspector, and I got all these choices. So I'll have a page for discovery. I divide the discovery to the plaintiff and discovery to the defendant rather than having all discovery. And this is probably, you know, one of my favorite uses of Notebook is because at a hearing or a trial, especially at a trial where you've already got the projector attached, and let's say the judge sends the jury out because there's a question about whether or not you identified a witness, you can say, well, Judge, let's look right here on August the 16th, 2012, I identified Dr. Freeman. Here's the letter, and I just pull it up, drag it off onto the projector, and here's where he was identified. And you just show them that did it. So discovery again is set up as to the plaintiff, to the defendant, and then I have for expert designations where I'll put all their designations in the reports. I'll give myself notes. They mentioned a certain person on page 39. When I come up here, I can just pull that up, put in 39, hit it, it goes right to where his report is, that witness. So you've got everything at your fingertips without having to hunt through binders. Then, under here's a wonderful feature of Circus Ponies that you could probably use with the iPad app if you want, but I've got a MacBook Air. I just take it with me to the deposition. I set up a page for each witness in the case. And on that witness's page, for example, here's my client. When I get to their page, I can have things associated with them that I'm going to need on their page. And for example, this cell, these are my notes from their deposition. And you'll note at some point, I'm just typing, and then they do something I want to highlight. You can highlight that text with your mouse by clicking and dragging. You hit Control, Option, Command, and the letter H, and it highlights it. Or you can go up to the highlighter, use a different color highlighter you want, Control, Option, Command, H, I highlight that text a different color. So as you're taking notes in a depot, things you maybe want to come back to on redirect or recross, you just highlight in your notes, here are things I need to go back to. I made myself a note, oh, maybe I need to do a motion for summary judgment on liability. Some questions they asked. In this case, involved surveillance video. So when I got the video, I just dragged and dropped the video right into the notebook. And if I click on it, it plays from within the notebook file. So here's a video of my client working out. That was a surveillance video. If I double click on it, I can bring it up. I say I can. It's taking a moment. I can bring it up in a window. It's not opening because I'm presenting. I can bring it up and I can just drag it onto the desktop to present to the jury. So here I can open it in QuickTime. There it is. And then I just drag it to the right of the screen onto the projector, and I can resize it and show it to the jury at that time. So I've got everything organized, so I don't have to go looking for it. And I do, again, over here on the witness, for each witness, here I've got their deposition notes. I highlight things. Those words are all in the index, so I can go back into text and I can search for words that particular witnesses said, as you saw a while ago. Yeah.
This is Chris Scott. How do you put notes in line with the attachments?
Okay, and when you drag an attachment in, let's show you an example. So you've got this deposition. Right here. I'll drag another attachment onto this page. So when I drag this attachment in, this page, it creates a cell. If I go to the end of the file name, hit enter, this is a bill of the cost. Now I can put this there. I can highlight it. Does that answer your question?
It shows me how you do it. It must be a preference setup, because when I hit the cursor at the end of the name, it enters a new cell.
That is a preference setup. If you go up to preferences on, I think it's on outlining. No. Let's find it. General. There is a preference for return, means a new cell, or keyboard. Here it is, under keyboard. Pressing return while editing inserts a new line in the text.
So if you've got that preference set up, how do you enter a new cell?
You hit, I think it's option. Is it command return? No. Option return.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. The next thing, and this gets, so here I've got all my notes. As I'm on some witnesses, as I'm going to cross them, for example, a defense witness, all the exhibits that are associated with that witness, I have set up already on that page. So even though I may enter the exhibit, and you'll see in a minute on my exhibits page where I have copies of the documents on the exhibits page, for that witness, I have all their documents right here. So as I'm cross-examining this guy, I can see this page. Here's a quote, something he said that was ridiculous. I can be looking at my notes to cross-examining, and I could double-click on the document, drag it to the right, and be showing the jury. And then, you know, within Acrobat, you can highlight things. You can't do call-outs, but you can highlight things. You can add arrows. You can move things around. You can magnify. You just can't do a call-out on top very well. So, in that regard, if I'm going to be doing lots of call-outs, Adobe Acrobat is not the way to present. I use Trial Smart for that. And in fact, in this case, I started the case using, this was a 3-week trial, I started the case using Circus Ponies Notebook to present and just dragging things over with Acrobat. It was just me versus 3 lawyers on the other side and a technology guy that they had brought running trial director. And they were doing all kinds of fancy call-outs and stuff like that. But they were having lots of trouble. Their software kept crashing. They would have depot quotes that they were going to show the jury, and it would crash, and then they'd end up just having to read it from the depot. It was actually kind of funny. And I liked the juxtaposition of a whole bunch of them versus little old me with just my laptop on my desk. And so I did that for about 3 or 4 days. But then, because they were doing all these fancy call outs, I decided on the second week of trial that I would move my exhibits into Trial Smith, which is Clarity Legal's program. And I was able to do all the same call outs and do all that stuff by myself, but they had a tech guy doing it. And my computer never crashed. Well, theirs crashed repeatedly, and they'd have problems getting exhibits up. And so it just kind of made them look incompetent, I thought. There were a bunch of them, but yet just me all by my lonesome over here could do everything they were doing. And I thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, so there is, on your witness pages, you'll have the document. I have their deposition, so I can refer back to it. All those files just drag and drop. Then, outside of the witness tab, I've got a documents page. The key documents in the case, the ones I'm going to be going to over and over again, I put in drag and drop here so I can get to it easily. It's key documents. And that's under documents. I segregate all the documents produced by my client. These are painting that my client used to do before injury. She can't paint anymore, but we could show the jury those. That's under my client's document. Then produced by my firm, Bates numbers. In this case, we had about 10,000 pages. I didn't have them all in here, but just the ones that I knew were going to be important. Documents produced by the opposition. Here's some reports. I have a tab for demonstrative evidence. That was, for example, I wanted to use a graphic about the domino effect of injuries and how it hurt the person. It's just a graphic I found on the internet. Put it in here and used it. This being a brain injury case, this is a wonderful little video I found on TED Talks that shows the neurons, the structure of the brain. On a website called Brainline, there was a nice little movie about traumatic brain injuries, and I had that available to me. So that's on my documents page. And then in this case, again, they had surveillance videos, so I had those videos with the PI reports for each one of them on a page like those easily. So that's under documents. Okay, then, here's trial. These are all the tabs that you would need going to trial. Your trial plan, your subpoenas, your witness list, exhibit list, your motion in limine, your voir dire. You can just drag and drop those things so that you have it available. And my goal, especially in this case where it was my little old person against this big, huge corporation with multiple lawyers, I wanted to present the image of David and Goliath. So I loved them having 3 lawyers. But not only that, I wanted to present the image that I was more prepared than they were, despite the fact they had so many lawyers, and I knew my case better. So my counsel table, I had nothing on counsel table other than my laptop, a notepad, and then for each witness that was going to be called in the trial, I had in a set of about 7 banker's boxes behind me, a binder tech notebook. I had a notebook for that witness. When that witness was called, I'd pull their notebook out, and they're different colors. And so my desk didn't have any papers laying on it. It didn't have any, loose things. Just my notebook, my laptop, and the rules of evidence, and a notepad for writing notes. So I kept a real clean desktop. And I've had repeatedly jurors come up to me afterwards and say, "You were so organized. You knew where everything was. You didn't have to flip and fumble for things." And that made them believe my case had merit just because of the organization. So, my trial plan, and my anticipated list of witnesses. I had created a little Adobe Acrobat document of trying to schedule witnesses of when I thought that they might, the order they might go in. I had that in here. Under trial, subpoenas, I didn't have to issue any. Had a witness list and exhibit list filed to the court, just drag and drop. motion in limine, as I did note my limine page. Every time I was at a depot, something would come up that I knew I'd want to limine. I would just add it to the limine page. So that when it got close to trial and I was preparing my motion in limine, I had all my notes right there. Opening statement, notes, you know, and I'd be in one depot, I'd just get an idea, boom, I put it on the opening statement page. The same with directs. I don't have any there. Crosses. Do I have anything? Now usually I'd put it on the witness page. Closing argument. There was my closing. When I got up to do my closing, instead of having a notepad, I just opened my closing argument and turned my monitor so I could see it from where I was standing. And therefore I had that same image of not having any notes. And a clean desktop. And I would just add things as I go. Then I would have my proposed jury charge, cases that I knew were going to come up, the jury charge. And then, you know, here's your final judgment. So I have that as we look towards an appeal with the charge. Then here's what I do at trial. I have a tab called Exhibits. And all the things I know I'm going to introduce as Exhibit, I will have dragged and dropped them. Once I get them numbered as Exhibit 65 or Exhibit 105, so that as I need to present it, it's right there. Right over here, you will notice a little emblem. That's a sticker. What you do is you right-click outside the cell, and you can go down to Add, and you have all these choices of different stickers. So what I do is, as an exhibit gets admitted, I put a little star next to it. It was admitted. If it didn't get admitted, I put a click on it, I use the no sign. So that means don't show that to the jury. It's not admitted. So right there, I have my exhibit list, and I can look back towards the end of trial. I can look at my exhibits, and I know what's admitted, what's not admitted. And so if I need to go back and try again to get that in, it's right there. And I do the same thing for the defendant's exhibit, the star that they were admitted, so that I have access to them right there. Then I'll have a tab for post-trial, appellate stuff, and if it goes to an appeal, I've got, you know, I can put my timetable, my briefs, my motions, all that stuff on appeal right down here. Other ways you can use Notebook. I have, for example, on appeals, I'll set up an appeal notebook. I'll have little different tabs, just contents, briefs, cases. As I do my brief, I'll put the other side's brief, cases cited, and as I do the legal research, I can file cases as good cases or bad cases with little notes referring to them. So it can use not only for trial, but for appeal too. I've used it for courses I was taking. You know, assignments in the courses. Don't say that. So basically, that's it. Are there any questions before we end it here?
Larry, I'll just ask you a question.
Yeah, Larry.
Yeah. First, thank you very much. I did have a question as to why you have miniaturized the PDF so you can see it miniaturized versus having it as a PDF icon.
I just like it. It's purely aesthetics most of the time. For some things, it is it's a reminder to me what that document is. Because in my mind, I may not remember the name of a document, but I'll remember it. The cover page of it looks like that little quest image. just a memory key for me to help associate the document file name. And I can easily change that to view as a file icon. It's just kind of boring looking to me. There's a good example right there. This article from the CDC for physicians had this purple front. And there were times I couldn't remember, you know, where that document might be named or what the file name might be, but I recognized that purple front real quickly.
Great. All right, thank you.
And notice, you can also embed like a keynote presentation. Here was a keynote presentation or a PowerPoint presentation. So you can have it all embedded in the notebook file. So it doesn't just have to be a PDF. As you've seen, it can be video, it can be audio files, and it can be JPEGs, the PowerPoint or keynote presentation. Let me show you one other thing you can do on a particular client. Say you're in a cell and you are in a deposition and you're editing, you're taking notes as you go. Say, well, let's do it this way. Let's create a new page, a new writing page. So it will be this witness text. As we're typing, maybe we're getting into an area that we want to remember. You can go up to it and you can turn on voice recording so that it records through the microphone in your notebook, in your laptop. It records what's going on, and as you tape, or as you type, it associates that part of the voice recording with. So under page, you go down to voice annotate. I turn that on. Tell it to start recording. So it is now recording. So as I type, it is recording. And then when I finish that recording, page, stop recording, you'll now see this little icon. And I can go back and click on that and I can listen to what was said while I was typing those notes. I have used that with a judge's permission. I have used that in trial during a particular witness's testimony so that I don't have to get a daily from the court reporter. Now, of course, I don't know if the judge would allow me to play it back to the jury, but I had it for my own use that night in the hotel room. Portions of an expert's or someone's testimony when they were testifying about a certain thing. So I could go back, you know, the next day. You said yesterday X, Y, Z. So that's a real handy feature. You know, if you have a kid that's getting ready to go to high school or college, this program is just incredible. I don't know why Apple hasn't bought it and included it. Or number two, why the Apple stores haven't clued on for all the students if they're getting ready to go to school, why they don't talk them into buying a copy of this program. I would think it would just be perfect for college. In fact, I've given it as a gift to all of my nieces and nephews when they start college for them to keep notebooks of all their classes. Any other questions?
Carl, I will point out that the other program we use in connection with Circus Ponies, and it's about as expensive, I think it's a whole $29, is a program called Scrivener by something in Latte. I forget. You can Google it, Scrivener. That if you do any writing of complex motions or briefs or whatever, is just an amazing program to help you keep all the research materials together with what you're writing. And we use these together quite frequently. So.
How do you use it together with Notebook? Do you just embed the Scrivener file, or?
Well, what we'll do a lot of times is we'll have outlines in the notebook for each research area. And so we'll put the notebook on one screen and a Scrivener file on the other, and we'll go through if we're creating a motion to strike their expert, for example. And we have already our notebook where we keep gathering stuff about striking experts and the frauds that are the biomechanical engineers and low impact cases or whatever. And then we can import those files. We have the outline. We can see which files we want to import into the Scrivener template. The reason you import them into Scrivener is because you can split the screen so you can write on the top half and see the case you're referring to or whatever on the lower half. So it works really well because we use the notebook to keep a running search record, and the Scrivener is for specific drafting projects.
Great. Hey, Sanford, if you're there, did you have any other questions since this whole thing kind of started based on your email?
I don't, but I appreciate that. Thanks again for doing this.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I will turn this thing off, and that's how you use Circus Ponies Notebook, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it.